What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Pembrokeshire-born Gavin Davis, who has been investigating the paranormal for over 25 years since he was 11. Now, he's the founder of the Paranormal Chronicles, and he took ownership of the Pembrokeshire Beyond in 2015. Now, he's written 2 best-selling novels, A Most Haunted House and Ghost Sex The Violation, and he has studied hauntings in 19th century literature. Now, he's conducted live investigations for radio, and his paranormal reports have made national and international headlines. Gavin Davis, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me on. It's an absolute delight. Can I just say to anyone who's watching this through the Paranormal Chronicles to please check out your archive. It's absolutely superb. I think it's one of the most wondrous collection of like-minded people and their stories and education information I've ever seen. It's absolutely superb. You're a credit, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and so are you as well. I appreciate that. Do you know what? We're going to cover 2 books here, and I know, as I was just saying off air there, that the time's just going to shoot by. But I really want to get your backstory as well. Now, I believe it was between the ages of 10 to 11 that your interest in the paranormal with was it your imaginary friend? Was that where you'd say it started for you?
Well, what had happened was, when I was about 10 years old, my teacher in school read us a book called The Uninvited, which is a terrifying tale, a true terrifying tale, based on alleged alien involvement with a family in Broadhaven in West Wales. And it was terrifying what these people were subjected to. So I went home absolutely terrified. It wasn't your usual Roald Dahl fare or something like C.S. Lewis. And it really confounded me to why a teacher would read this to us at such a young age. So I was really upset. And my father, he came home working from nights. He sat by me on my bed and I was really upset. And he said, "What's up?" And I said, "Well, misread us this book. It was really terrifying." He's like, "Have you ever seen a ghost?" Now, when I was 4 years old, we lived in an old mill in Bybury. It was a converted mill with some friends, another family, because my father is ex-RAF. And I had an imaginary friend, which was I described as a man in a top hat, and he had a waistcoat, and he used to smoke a pipe. And for all intents and purposes, he was just an imaginary friend. So imagine my parents and their friends surprised when one evening they put me to bed, and I'd been talking to this guy, and I'd gone to bed, and they were playing cards at a table. And in the corner, the women saw materialise the figure of a man, a Victorian gentleman in Victorian garb, and he just dematerialised. But they could smell the aroma of tobacco. So they did some digging. It turned out that there was an old Victorian gambler had died there, and he still haunted the place. He's very gregarious. He's a very friendly chap. He wasn't very threatening at all. But I can't remember anything about it. I'd like to maybe have some regression to find out who this guy was, find out what we were talking about. So my father brought me back to that moment. He said, "Have you seen a ghost?" And I said, "Well, I think so." And he said, "Did he hurt you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Ghosts could be amazing." He said, "Imagine if there is life after death. Imagine if there is this realm. What if there is more?" And he said, "Have you ever seen a UFO?" And I said, "Well, I think so." A few years before, me and my father had been walking this very dark lane, and we saw this big light just come across the hedges and up across the field and up into the sky, and it illuminated the sky. And he's ex-RAF, but we ran home. And he said, "Were we scared?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "No, we weren't scared. We were excited." And I was like, "No, we were terrified." But he said, these things are there to be explored, to be, we need to be inquisitive, because he said it would make life so much more exciting. He said, it's the living that will do you more harm than any other possible, maybe tell that to the people who've been mutilated and abducted by aliens. And from there, my love for the paranormal grew, and I started investigating straight away. I bought books by Arthur C. Clarke. I started reading books like The Photographs of the Unknown. I tried to find every single book on the Ripston UFO cases from the school book I was taught. And from there, this love and passion of the paranormal just grew and grew and grew, and here I am now.
So prior to the previous book, A Most Haunted House, and what we've just discussed there as well, what was your sort of journey then into paranormal investigations in the sense of bigger cases prior to A Most Haunted House? I mean, had you gone on many investigations? Had you formed groups?
Well, I tried to form groups. It's always difficult because people got to find the time and the enthusiasm, and sometimes you have people that literally have a little enthusiasm for the subject rather than a genuine interest where they want to study and research. And I do get a lot of backlash, and I apologize to anyone, but I don't believe investigation is merely just going out in the dark with a camcorder, shouting, "Show yourself," and then having a cup of coffee and going home. I don't believe it's that. It's a lot of groundwork, investigating the location, the environment, the habitat, the animals, the fauna, everything. There's so many stuff, For example, like one of the new theories is the toxic mold syndrome of certain damps and molds in old buildings can cause hallucinations. And you've got to be really, really accurate in your investigation in what you're perceiving and what may have been causing the events. So I was blessed. There was a gentleman called Gwyn Thomas and a few others, and we really went investigating, and we would find as many places as we could and do the back work. And investigating can just be as exciting in your living room at a desk with loads of books or going to the library as it is going to an old building. That's like the money shot, so to speak, of actually going there and trying to determine what it is. So I'd done many castles, some private investigations, and then I kind of eased off for a bit because I had a very busy career. I was in a new relationship. I bought a house, a certain house, and I quieted down for a couple of years, maybe 4 or 5 years. I still watched Most Haunted. I still read. I still watched The X-Files, all of that. But I wasn't as proactive in the field as I had been.
Right. Okay. And in case you're based in Wales, which was where I used to be based as well. Is that mainly where you have held investigations in the Welsh area?
Yeah, most definitely. Pembrokeshire is absolutely beautiful, and I recommend to any of your your subscribers and viewers to take the opportunity to go to Pembrokeshire. It's got 58 beautiful beaches, castles, tons of history. So it's predominantly in Pembrokeshire. There is so much on your doorstep. There's every little nook and cranny. And if you're lucky, you can get a good urban explorer to join your team, and they'll find some more places for you as well. But I've been to Margam Castle in Port Talbot, and a few other castles, a few inns, a few private investigations at certain houses. So I mainly West Wales. When I went to Iceland, the country, for my 40th, I was very interested in mythology and all that there, and I thought I'd love to spend a few weeks maybe writing a book on the paranormal in Iceland. So certainly lots of scope for more.
So what would you say is your main focus in the paranormal right now?
Right now, I'm currently working on ufology. I'm absolutely loving the subject. I very much believe, and it does offend some people, and it's not something I want to do. I'm a very rational person, but I really like the idea that aliens have been visiting us since time immemorial. That they've possibly engineered us or guided us, shepherded us in whatever fashion they have to get us to where they are. And I believe they still visit, the same as we were as missionaries when we were discovering and exploring the continents and planet 100, 200 years ago. I think they're doing the same with us. Some of their motives and means might be a little terrifying, some of the things they do, but then are they here to harvest us? Are they prisoner? Are we a resource? Are we just study subjects? Do they look at us the same as we look at a rabbit or a guinea pig or a chimpanzee in a cage? But it's a fascinating subject, and I think that the governments of this planet have so much information they need to disclose, because I think we're ready. I think we can handle it now. I think we could. NASA is slowly leaking bits of information, like there's microbes and there's water, and I think they're preparing us for a big story, hopefully in our lifetime as well.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? The truth is out there. Definitely, we got the new X-Files starting back soon, which is going to be fantastic to get their take on what they've been up to all those years. And their focus this time is heavily UFOs as well. And I've interviewed all sorts of people on the UFO subject, and I can say that there is definitely something there, definitely. Whether it's interdimensional, maybe like this idea as well that there's multi dimensions. Possibly the same with the idea where spirit may be, where our energy goes, in a sense, when we cross over, that there's many dimensions that we can go to, and there's sometimes a bleed through from there here to there. Who knows?
Oh, most definitely. I work with a wonderful girl called Karen Williams. She's very spiritually minded. Now, I have no abilities or gifts. I'm a very rational guy. My thing is I say to everyone, there's not a person alive that knows the intricacies of time, space, and the universe and the human mind. Nobody knows all the answers. If you're a skeptic, great. If you're a believer, great. But nobody has all the answers. I mean, Karen, we like to spend a lot of time philosophizing and discussing various ideas. And one of the ideas we like is that, what's not to say that should they exist from angels, demons, spirits, aliens, that they're just dimensional creatures from the same tier in the universe. There's fabric. This veil is lifted and these things pass through, because a lot of the traits that I studied for my second book in terms of incubus and succubus could also be related to alien activity. People with the sleep paralysis and the strange things going on in the rooms, and also demonology. And I don't think these things are massively unrelated.
No, I think you're completely right there, and I think that as well as a young paranormal investigator as well. I think you come in at a time now where there's different ways of looking at things, where maybe an old paradigm of thinking is now gone, and there's a new way that's coming in that we never gave consideration to before, and I think it brings science together in there as well at some point.
Almost definitely, We're going to discover life and universe at some other stage, hopefully in the near future. And it's going to be very challenging to what we believe. Religion, no disrespect to anyone who's particularly religious or has a strong faith in something, but religion needs us to believe in certain things. It's kind of a control. The governments, they want us to believe in certain things because it's control. Because if you suddenly just said tomorrow, oh, look, don't worry, guys, there's life after death, or there are aliens, everything would change, and we would lose, society would lose control. There'd be more suicides, murders, new faiths, new this, new that, and people don't like that element that they can't control. and it will be subdued from us as long as they can. But more and more of us are awakening and not afraid to speak. Some people more prolifically than I, some people really prolifically like you with your show and the guests you have. And we've got to keep going and going and going and getting that message across. Guys, whatever you believe, just keep thinking, and the possibilities are wondrous. All the things, all the problems that we have, environmental disease, overpopulation, resources, all of these things, there are answers out there, and it could be an incredible, beautiful world. In 500 years' time, we may have so many answers, because 500 years ago, we thought the world was flat.
I think there are answers out there, and I think a lot of us just do not listen, or have missed the that opportunity where those answers have come before, and I think the same information keeps coming through sometimes because we're just not getting it. It's not that we need to sometimes to hear newer information. It's that actually some of what's been told to us before, we're still not applying it, and it could make the world and ourselves come from a different space and a more peaceful space, and we perhaps would do things a little more with ease and more from love.
Oh, definitely. Love is the universal bind. It's the glue that keeps everything together. And we're motivated by such base like things in terms of like greed, money, sex, land, power, armies, war, death, destruction. We're a very spiritual race. I think as Nietzsche said that mankind's biggest problem is that we are stuck between ape and God, and we're the spiritual creature. All of us have the spirituality within us, whether we believe it or not. But we're still controlled by very animalistic pursuits: sex, love, money, all of these different things. And there needs to be that shift more to the spiritual side if we're going to survive, because it'd be a horrible waste if we don't, and the human race just collapses and we go the way of the dinosaurs, and maybe the lizards or the ants or whatever, they'll take over and maybe do it right.
Well, there's many different truths, and we all have our own unique individual truth, and that truth can change as we become more aware of our full potential and the other realities out there. And as we go through shifts as well, and shit, sometimes truth will change there, definitely. And I think it did for you in your book, A Most Haunted. Now, initially when you wrote this book, and I believe you was actually writing this in any free time that you had, even at train stations, etc. at the time. Yep. This was you. But when the book was initially released, you came from the perspective that you had investigated this case, but really it was you. This was your experience. Why did you, first of all, you take that stance initially?
Well, I wrote A Most Haunted House because I wrote A Most Haunted House because it happened to me. It really turned me on my axis in terms of my beliefs. I'm still very rational. I was going through a really, really bad part of my life. And I'd kind of, as I said, I'd kind of come off the paranormal trail somewhat. And I was just kind of, on the outskirts looking in, not really being that proactive. And then I bought a new house with someone I was deeply in love with. And it all just spiraled out of control really quickly. And it was very terrifying. Now, within the book, anyone who's read A Most Haunted House or have read the reviews or done some research will know that it's not just about a haunting. It's not sensationalized. If you're looking for a book with spinning heads and blood coming out the walls, it's not the book for you. It is a true account, word by word, of the people who were there. So what I did is I distanced myself away from my experiences. I gave myself a totally different name. The narrative is totally unique to anything that is currently out on the market. It is done in interview style, so you get the people's word in rather than me just trying to create a narrative for them and fill in the blanks. So obviously what I say is what I believe that was happening. Now, I distanced myself because obviously there was an affair, there was my dependency, there was my depression, there was my breakdown, plus there was the haunting, and I had to have some respect for some of the people in the book. So I changed all the names, but 95% of the book was true. So I wrote it then kind of cathartically, really, to try and help me understand what had happened. I took myself out of the situation then and started to fill in the blanks as an investigator. and then put the book together. I didn't expect anyone to read it. It was done for a cathartic reason. A couple of friends had asked me about my experiences. Put it on Kindle. A couple of copies were sold, and now 35,000 copies have been sold. And there's people interested in doing films with it and TV with it. And people ask me all kinds of questions. But I just had a distance, and then I just felt, I want people to know it was my experience. I want people to know that I'm accountable for a lot of what happened in terms of the relationship dissolving. And what I like about the book, without sounding arrogant, but what I like is people are left to their own devices. And was it the stresses of the relationship that manifested the haunting, or was it the haunting that ultimately crushed the relationship?
Yes.
Did the haunting thrive off the negativity, or was there psychological factors where obviously in the book, I suffered with severe dependency issues to alcohol. I've been sober 3 years, and I've been on a mission to be as productive as possible and as happy, and my life is so much better. But at the time, it was such a dark and depressing time, and I was worried that people would be like, "Oh, you're an alcoholic. You made the relationship. No wonder she had an affair. You ruined. You should have been more assertive, or more less reckless, or whatever it was." And so there was that worry. But now most people are like, "Well, it's okay." A lot of people have had dependency issues, but it's an interesting book, and I stand by it. I take a polygraph on it to say that 95% of that book is true, in that what the perception of what happened.
Right. Okay. Well, without giving too much away, obviously, what are some of the key things that take place in regards to the haunting then in this book?
With almost anybody's experienced this, it always starts something mundane, little things like the first day we were there, the bedroom door opened on its own, which was quite difficult because it was on rough carpet and a latch. We made a joke about it. Then things started going missing. Then there's the cold spots. The bathroom had a really, really depressing feel to it. And then about 2 weeks in, I'd been with this girl for a very, very long time. We'd lived together, and then we bought the house. And within 3 months, the relationship was over. I was homeless. I had nothing. I was just a bum, a wreck, an alcoholic. So it happened quick. And we were there watching, I think it was 24, was quite popular at the time. And we had this very, very long living room with a white carpet. And you'd be sat on your sofa watching the television. And from the corner of your eye, just in your peripheral, you would see this little smudge, this black shadowy shape, only a few feet high. And you'd look at it and you wouldn't see it. You'd see it. And I never said anything to the girl who's called Sarah in the book, for the simple reason she didn't like that kind of stuff. She knew I'd had an interest in it, and she didn't like it. It scared her. So this thing got braver and braver and started, traversing and meandering across the living room over a series of time, over a couple of weeks, till eventually it stood in front of a TV and you could just see it direct. And Sarah just grabbed my arm and she said, "Can you see it?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "I've been seeing it for about a fortnight." It wasn't doing anything. It was just a shock that it wasn't a trick. It wasn't like some grease on my glasses, or I thought maybe it was a rat or something like that, or I suffer from aura migraines where I get little flickers in my eyes. Very strange that this was happening. Things kept going, things running up the stairs, feelings. And the worst of it, I think, when it really, this kind of hurricane of activity, this just epicenter, was the night we believed we'd been burgled, and we heard the window get smashed in. We heard people very heavy-footed running through the house, opening drawers, smashing things. Very quickly, anyone who's been a victim of home invasion just will tell you, just happened so quick from the time you awake to the realization what's going on. So we ran upstairs, pushed the door, and we were just terrified. And I shouted out, and it ran, and I didn't have a mobile phone. It was the house phone was downstairs. The girl's mobile phone, which she put on charge, hadn't charged. It was dead. There was all these weird things where people could pick apart and say, well, maybe it's very coincidental, it's very convenient, and all these things. But other people say, well, maybe it was the haunting causing this. I braved enough to go downstairs. The house was untouched. There was no break-in. There was nothing had happened at all. It was just this terrifying episode. And the only things that happened was a picture of me and the girl I called Sarah had been moved. and the CDs had been put in a spiral on the floor. And there was something just weird things, and you're thinking, I'm mad. I must have gone mad. Now at the time, the police services were using a new mobile carrier, and they were using technology called Tetra. And at the same time all of this is happening, we're getting leaflets through the door about campaigning and opposing this Tetra technology because it was used in Cold War as a possibility of morale-crushing techniques to make people feel depressed, make them feel sick, make them feel war weary and that they didn't want to carry on with the fight. And you're thinking then, I thought I was burgled. What if it is this thing, this Tetra? What if I've gone mad? What if this woman is playing a trick and she's looking at me thinking I'm responsible? So that was one of the things that happened. The next door neighbours then, they'd had similar experiences, and they had deducted that it was actually a family, that the two houses had been one, and there was a family. There was one lady, two children, and a very, very tall, shadowy shape they called the Angry Man, who was about 6-7 foot. And again, he was this weird, shadowy thing you could see from the peripheral. And he would traverse the house, and he sat down in a chair opposite one of the neighbours, who then just got up and went on the street. So they were terrifying. And he used to smash things, he would disrupt things.
But this is next door. This is This
is the neighbours. So I did some research, and in 9 years, 7 couples had lived in that house, and none of the couples had made it. None of them lasted. And, things happened, things were set on fire, there were voices. And the book isn't particularly long. It'll only take you a couple of hours to read. But it's just the intensity of, it starts mundane, it gets so intense, and it's like it won, but the relationship had crumbled, and it thrived off the negativity. And it would play with you just when you thought it was over. You'd have a few days peace, and then bump. We had the house blessed. For a week or two, it was bliss, and then it came back with such ferociousness. But then skeptics will say it's psychological. Believers will say, well, it's this and that. It is very difficult. People say, would I go back in the house? And even as an investigator, I'm not sure. I think what I do is just set up some webcams and stream it so people could just study the house from home.
Right. So when you left that house, when the relationship was over, did it follow you or her?
It stayed. Now, I actually have it here somewhere. I should have prepared it. One day I went to, I don't know how you describe, like a holistic shop where they sell crystals and incense and things like that. And the woman was behind the counter, and she just said to me, you have a very dark presence latched onto you. And I thought, give it a rest. I've had enough of this. My life's in pieces. And she's going, it's on you like a grey cloud. I said, okay, then, what is it? And she said, there's something at your house, and it's feeding off the negativity. And she gave me this crystal, this green crystal. It's quite large, cost me about £40. And I thought, you know what, if it keeps the relationship intact, then I don't care. We didn't have a lot of money. It was all going on bills and mortgages. And people said, why didn't you just leave? And it's like, well, it's not as easy as that. When you've invested everything into a home, and you just bought a new home, you don't have a lot. We didn't have people with just me and her and a cat and a dog could just go and move. So I brought the crystal back. Things went quiet for the whole week. The relationship then dissolved. I was given no option to leave. I'm accountable for some of the things that happened. I left, and because there was someone else involved, rightly or wrongly, I think it was a little petty of me. I'm accountable for that, and I apologise if anyone thinks it's bad. But I took the crystal with me, and I went back and I lived with my father, and I was fine. And literally within a few months, I was back on my feet. I took part in a national TV show called Natural Born Sellers, which aired on ITV. I did the Harry Hill show. I met someone else, and my life just continued. Now, on the other hand, at the house where I left, it just got worse and worse and worse. I spoke to the woman, Sarah, a few weeks after I left, and she was really upset. And she said that it pulled her out of her bed, that it was still very active, and she doesn't live there anymore, but the house is still hers. and is rented often, and people don't last there long.
Oh, right. So the house is hers, and she rents it still.
Yeah.
Wow. But people maybe don't stay too long, as far as you're aware.
A very good friend of mine lives in a few doors up from the house, and he's always texting me back up for rent and whatever, and he says, "Why don't you just buy it?" And I'm like, maybe it's something that's best left in my head rather than visit. And I'm not really entirely sure how I'd react to going back in. Maybe I'd be fine now.
Yeah. Now, wow. So you got it blessed, and yet it still stayed. What do people do in those circumstances then? What is the advice to give to people? If even a blessing's not going to work. I mean, I wonder if there was a medium ever consulted to try to communicate.
Yeah, the person who gave the blessing believed that she had an ability or a gift. We looked at different things. We looked at the religious approach, not in terms of exorcism, because it was contrary to our religious beliefs. We didn't really put much faith. But we had a contact, and this woman came in the house, and for all intents and purposes, she was great, and she gave us protection in terms of imagining these great big balls of white light in us, and it felt good. I wanted it to work. I want anyone to know, even though I'm really, really rational, I don't want anyone out there to think I was dismissive of it. I was certainly dismissive a few weeks after when it all started up again. I felt conned, but then from research and just theorizing about it is that does a human really have the ability to fully stop these dimensional creatures, these super beings? We have no idea what their motives are, what their agendas are, what their powers are. We look at it as we describe a lot of what they do in very human terms, but these things aren't certainly human. It's like me trying to explain to like a rabbit why I'm going to microwave some food or why I'm going to go and drive a car. It's not going to comprehend my needs and my desires and wants and abilities. And I felt that whatever this was, nothing was going to stop it. But then again, the other answer is if it's all in the head to begin with, then maybe there was nothing to cleanse.
Well, yeah, when you left Sarah there and it was still happening to her, then, two people can't be, projecting the same causes in the head, in a sense. There's two individuals here that it's happening to, and it's separated as well, and it's still happening to the remaining person in the house. So, yeah. Now, I wonder if she was in a bad state, as probably you were at that time, obviously, from what you've described, that it was just feeding off it. If there had been people in that house who were coming from a completely different perspective mentally, in a sense of positivity, love, and everything else for themselves, whatever, maybe there would have been less attachment. I don't know.
Well, there were other people in the house as well who I was blessed to have witness testimonials from, and they had guests, visitors, family who had their own micro episodes, or they had their own perspective of what was happening. And I was catching up with one of them recently, a dear friend of mine, and I was saying, well, what do you think happened? It often comes up, what do you think happened? And he was of the belief that whatever it was feeding off the negativity. There's people in life that like to hurt others and see them fall on their face and are not proud of their accomplishments, or to see them finally settle down or have love. There's people like that in life. But he was saying, what if there's a force, this evil, insidious, massive evil force, that the negativity we would produce is almost like a food or a commodity or resource. And another doctor I spoke to, a doctor of psychology, who I was just emailing, he was saying that, and it tied in nicely with my second book, that he believes that there are these entities that will latch onto us humans to try and break us to the extent that we will give up the most precious gift we have, which is our life. And therefore we forfeit our soul to a deeper, darker, demonic power. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't got that evidence to support that claim. But there's so many theories on why these things are. And the amount of people who have had experiences similar, just in my county alone, let alone in Wales or the UK or the world, are there things out there that break people? it thrives off their dependency, off their negativity, off their depression, off their anxiety? What if there are things that cause those things?
Well, yeah, exactly. What if someone's depression is amplified by an attachment that they're unaware of? And how does someone get out of that situation, let alone leave just by leaving the space, which is what you did, and other healing stuff, the process that you went through at the time. But yeah, what if these entities that are attached are entities, or whatever you want to call demonic possessions or whatever, but they're energy that has decided to stay and addicted to believing it's not lovable and everything else, and it's in that same space as what it occupied in the hate and everything else before it passed on, and it just hasn't moved towards the light, or it hasn't gone home, this eventual journey that we all take to a place called home, call it heaven, whatever you want to personify it as, but they're basically trapped in a lower astral plane, with us in a sense. I don't know, just putting that out there to you.
Exactly. This is the beautiful and wondrous thing about the paranormal is there are so many different theories. Like, anybody who gets in contact with me at theparanormalchronicles.com, if you have an argument or a theory, I will happily read it and get back in touch with you. It's the people who just go, "Oh, it's crap. What a load of rubbish." Don't say that. Give me a theory why you believe it's rubbish. Give me some backup, give me some evidence, give me some thoughts, some theory, because it's such a huge subject. It's a pseudoscience. There's more and more and more people. And I look forward to the day that the paranormal is simply known as normal. But it's not a pseudoscience. It is a science. That we have tests and means of knowing that this realm exists, that we can interact with it. I like the idea of, it was in The Others, that great film with Nicole Kidman.
Oh yes, great film, yeah.
I'm sat in my living room in the year 2016. I live in an old stables. It has obviously been converted, and maybe someone 100 years ago is like watering the horses or whatever, and they can hear this mumbling noise and feel this presence, but it's me haunting them, and then maybe things I see is them, because what is not to say that time just not simply passed by, and we just have visions of the past as well. Ghosts walk through walls, but then you find out there used to be a door there because that person is traversing the time and space they're in, but we're looking at it from now. And there's so many wonderful theories that you could spend the rest of your life thinking about it.
Absolutely, and the idea that if you, even through a Ouija board, for example, in a sense where you can speak to spirits that may be around in this astral plane, and for them, they're in, you ask them what year it is, and it's for example the 1920s, where of course they're not even aware they're interacting with someone that's in 2016. What if, from what we've been told from channeled information, in the sense that there is no such thing as time. Time is an illusion. It's a man-made thing. Time is, in a sense, but when you cross over, everything's happening now.
Exactly, it's a marvelous point. But time is a man-made measurement. It is simply for us. You might speak to an alien and explain what time is, and they'll be really confused. And there's so many different elements of the paranormal that we can't get a grasp on. We haven't got, people say, well, you haven't got evidence. There's no clear evidence out there. And that's because maybe we don't have the means to record it yet. And what makes it really hard and very frustrating, especially for me, I must get 20 emails a day. I get photographs and I get videos, and we've got Photoshop and we've got CGI, and it's so difficult. It is so difficult to discern now what is real and what is fiction, because everyone's out there trying to make a buck and a dime on the paranormal, and hoaxing EVPs and hoaxing videos and photographs and experiences, and it's making it really hard for people like us who have a genuine interest in the subject.
I think there's something to say about EVPs, the electronic voice phenomena. Have you ever dealt with, experimented with that?
Yeah, most definitely. As I said earlier, I work with an absolutely wonderful young lady called Karen Williams.
Well, you did mention,
she can be contacted through the website, and I would certainly suggest that you speak to her at some stage. She's got a remarkable story. She's only 19, and her knowledge and abilities they surprise me. I don't know how to react sometimes, and she was saying about. Sorry, Kevin. I just forgot what the question was.
No,
Sorry.
the EVPs, electronic voice
Oh,
phenomena.
electronic voice
Yeah.
phenomenon. Yes, we were doing an investigation quite recently at an outdoor location, and we were doing some EVPs, and we were very interested. We got some fantastic evidence. We got some good photographs, and one of the team who had joined us, he claimed that he had captured EVP sessions. He'd captured some evidence while on investigation, only for us to find out he'd hoaxed it. And it's really frustrating. It's like we don't need that. We've done our own, and the human mind is conditioned to see things and look for things and hear for things. So it's very easy to think, oh my God, was that a voice I heard? But there are examples out there of very clear cut. Now, Karen uses a spirit box. And with the spirit box, she's had some fantastic communications. Again, I'm not really sure how it works. She uses spiritual divining rods and she has conversations with alleged spirits in the area. But yes, the EVPs, I think it's got to be something. I think if you're going to do an investigation in the field, you need to record everything. Anyway, you should record it from top to bottom, video and digital as well.
Okay, so this Karen Williams, she's linked on your website, is she? And she's someone that you've got in contact. Did she get in contact with you through your paranormal Facebook group?
No, it was really bizarre. We were. I'd run an event, a Halloween event, the night before, and it was basically all the stories from the Paranormal Chronicles, all the real life hauntings. You could actually experience. We used a theatre troupe, and we created this environment. And the next night, there was like a Call of Duty game had come out, and I went down for the midnight launch, and there was all these people there, and this very young, attractive young lady came up to me and said, "Oh, you're the paranormal guy?" And I was like, "Yeah," and we were chatting. And she was very well spoken, very elegant young lady, and I left it at that. And then we made contact again, and I told her that I had this plan to start a team, and it turned out that her and her mum had these abilities and gifts. She's a fantastic investigator and an absolutely superb abilities and gifts in her insight.
Okay. So obviously, and you mentioned that website again, Paranormal Chronicles, which is your the website that you go under.
Yeah, I try and write an article at least once a week or so. There's ghost photos, there's reports, there's more on the ghost sex and spectrophilia phenomenon. Pretty much loads on there. Over 300,000 people have visited, and there's a good community sense, lots of interaction on the posts. And if anyone's happy to get in touch, and please get in touch with me. If you don't like anything I say, get in touch. I won't be offended. It's really hard to offend me. So give it a go if you want. Come and visit the paranormalchronicles.com. All the links for everything's up there. Books, everything you need to know about us is all up there.
Excellent. Okay, so you've got a number of members on there. Very interesting. Okay, now just sort of putting a closure to a most haunted house. How long was it after leaving the property that the sort of the alcohol, the addiction, the depression, and everything else sort of slowly started? How long was it before you healed?
I went off the rails for a little bit, and then about a month later, I started to get it together. But then I relapsed when I was about 35, 36. And things were really, really dark, but nothing of a supernatural or paranormal thing happened. And then I had a breakdown, and I obviously felt that some of the issues from a most haunted house still affected me. I sobered. I've been sober 3 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. It's the best thing I ever did. Honestly,
yeah,
you have no idea. People say, "Don't you miss drinking?" I'm like, God, no, it's amazing. I don't smoke. I don't even drink coffee. I like my food. That's what I like now, and I put on a bit of weight recently. But I felt I needed to address the issues of Most Haunted House and that's why I wrote it. And I was working, and I was traveling, and I had a lot of time at train stations. I wrote the book. It's not a huge book. It's only about 30,000 words. You can borrow it on Amazon if you don't fancy buying it. I'm not here to shill the book. If you want to read it, you can borrow it on Amazon as a Prime member. And I was just really good. And what really, really encouraged me was the amount of people who came forward and they were like, I've had a similar experience, or like I felt
Amazing.
you, and even the people who were quite dismissive or critical of me just made me realize what a bad place I had been in, and how I
Yes.
needed to take accountability for what I'd done.
Well, it's great, the honesty in the book, and like you say, you've helped people that you're not even probably aware of, really. I mean, there's only so many that will come forward to say, to contact you. But I'm sure, selling that many copies on self-published as well, that's pretty amazing. And for you to put, and again, I think writing the book is part of the healing process as well, to be able to reflect back on that, to commit that to writing. But I think we all go through everything that we need to go through sometimes, and it makes us the person you are now. And had you not gone through that, you, on this journey that you're on now, would not be the paranormal investigator that you're proven to be now, in the sense that you've lived it and that you've experienced it.
Most definitely, as I keep saying, I'm really, really rational about it, but there's always a little bit of extra room now. I'm sober, I'm coherent. I really take my time investigating, so that when something does happen, then I'm excited. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
this is, and things have happened on investigations. Some really cool things have happened. I'm not going to jump to any conclusions and say, oh, it was 1,000,000% definitive proof. I have video of an investigation. I'm not going to release it yet. It's currently under analysis. I think it's really good. I think it's interesting. I could have been hoaxed. There's a million different things what could have happened. I certainly know I wasn't CGI or anything like that. And when it's ready to be released, I'll put it on the Paranormal Chronicles. Maybe come and talk to you, Kevin. I don't know, but I think I might have some really good footage of a paranormal entity.
Excellent. Well, that'll be well worth having a look at that when you're a bit further with that. But people will be able to find that by going on to your website, which is on the screen now.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you very much. Give it a go,
Yeah.
guys. Check it out. And if there are any spelling mistakes, please go easy on me. I am profoundly dyslexic. That's why it takes me so long to write these books. The third book I was supposed to write was supposed to be out in November. It should be out in the summer. I do apologize, but I am profoundly dyslexic in almost, I can't even say it. It's beyond a joke now. So
Hey, don't worry, I'm completely dyslexic as well, and it was the one test that I had that I passed with flying colours, so I was actually quite proud of that. So, but obviously I know the clock's ticking here a little bit, and I really want to get on to this second book, Ghost Sex: The Violation. Now, I mean, there's a title that will grab anyone, and I'm sure it did. Who, for people that weren't really reading it for the initial interest in the paranormal. But how did that book come about?
yeah, Ghost Sex Violation. I do regret calling it that. I did struggle. Maybe it's a little too sensationalized, but I just wanted people. I didn't want there to be any bones about what it was about. I didn't want some granny picking it up and thinking, "Oh, I picked up this book," and then to be totally horrified and shocked. I decided I was going to follow up the Most Haunted House. It was going to be really difficult because whatever the second book I wrote was not going to have that emotional context that it was written by me personally. It was going to lack that. So I thought I would go back to my roots and do a study into imaginary friends. So through the website, I sent out a press release and a call to people. If you've had any experiences with imaginary friends that you feel may have been paranormal in nature, please get in touch. And lo and behold, people started getting in touch. Now I met with this lady. She was lovely. She didn't come across as insane or an attention seeker. And we started talking about imaginary friends that had happened to her and her late sister when they were children. She had this experience with a place called Naughty Boy. And it was a really interesting story. And it was quite a sad story. And we started working on it. But then she divulged to me, this woman in her 40s, that there was more. And being an investigator, I really pushed and I pushed and pushed and found out that she claimed that she'd been sexually assaulted and abused by not one, but two paranormal entities over a period of about 20 years. Now, her family were involved. People will immediately just say it's like the entity, the Doris Biffa case from Southern California.
Yeah.
Obviously, in the very nature of it, it is similar. But the detail that this woman gave to me willingly, we'll call her Lisa, is disturbing, brutal, and graphic. And then people say, "Oh, you say that to sell books." I actually say to people, "Please don't read this if you're really offended." It sold 4,500 copies on release. Critically, it was polarizing. The paranormal community were really divided on it. And I received death threats, which was all right. Fundamental Christian people were really upset by the whole notion of it. I didn't
Yeah.
put any words in this woman's mouth. It is her words, it's her testimony, it's her documentation. What I'd learned from A Most Haunted House was to give more insight into the possible rationale and reasons behind it. So in the book, you not only have my ideas on what's happening, but also a psychologist who I brought with me, who's able to delve further into sleep disorders, psychological issues, hallucinations. But the book was really grim. And then some of the more prolific people in the paranormal community, doctors, psychologists, they started looking into it. And they were saying that they believe that it was a spirit and an incubus that were sexually abusing this lady. It was horrific. There's one part in the book which just stops people. It's so horrific. It's so grim. And while writing it, it took its toll on me. You've got to think I've been good and chirpy and enthusiastic and sober. And at the time, the girl I was with, it's like you're hearing all of this and you're writing it. And then how do you go home and make love to your girlfriend when you've got all this stuff in your head about, the rape, the entity rape is just sexual. It was unwanted, but it was sexual. But the incubus rape is just inhuman. It's just beyond humiliation. It wanted to hurt this woman and degrade her. And it didn't only just degrade her and dehumanize her, it did it in front of her teenage son as well. And it was horrible. And obviously, it's not just people read it to think it's 50 Shades of Ghost, it's titillation. It's also a very real haunting, and how that happens and how it builds and builds, and how this woman, in her own words, raw and gritty words, is explaining how she is getting on with her life, how she's trying to cope and go to work. She can't hold a relationship down. How are you supposed to say to a guy, look, I really like you, I'd like to bring you home, but there is a chance that I'll be raped by an invisible force in the night? Now, most people say, why didn't she leave her house? Well, the reason was wherever she went, it followed.
Are you in contact with this lady now still?
Yeah, I haven't spoken to her since about November.
Okay.
She wanted no money. She didn't ask for anything, only that if anybody got in touch that they believed had similar circumstances, that I put them in touch with her. And she wants to create like a support group because she doesn't think people are taking this issue seriously. She hasn't done so much recently. She's still in contact with a psychologist I brought in. And a lot of people now, they speak to Karen Williams in terms of this for spiritual protection. I have to be so careful because if anyone is experiencing anything like this, I have to look at, do we give spiritual protection, or do you need to go and get professional help from a doctor, from a GP? Because there are many things. There's a certain